Greetings, beloved. Whoever you are and wherever you are in life right now, I hope you know that you are welcome here in the Southeast Conference of the United Church of Christ. I'm the Reverend Kim Wood, and I serve as the conference minister for the Southeast Conference. The Southeast Conference of the UCC includes Alabama, Georgia, most of Mississippi, South Carolina, and most of Tennessee. We have been a presence in the Deep South since at least 1681, when Circular Congregational Church in Charleston, South Carolina was founded. I am a medium height woman of light skin with brown wavy hair, blue eyes that are rimmed by purple rimmed glasses. I am wearing a black clergy shirt with a white collar tab, silver hooped earrings, and I have on a gold clergy medallion that's specifically made for conference ministers. I'm located in my office, which has sage green walls, a white couch with a red pillow, some bookshelves off to the side that have lots of books on them, and a piece of what I'll call artwork behind me, a framed mesh piece with a lot of ribbons tied on it of various colors that we use each year in the Southeast Conference to commemorate and remember our loved ones who have passed during the course of the previous year. It is our way of keeping our ancestors in mind, both visually and in our hearts. As I've been preparing this message to you, we are all heading into the last few days of the season of Lent, the liturgical season of preparation for Resurrection Sunday and the Easter season. This year, we've been using the theme of actively preparing for Jesus as we've engaged in conversations around three specific books. On Monday, March 2nd, all were invited to attend a presentation and discussion with Anton Flores Masonet, co-founder of Casa Alterna, activist, and author of the book Welcome Friends, Stories of Hope and Hospitality with Immigrants. In our time together, we talked about seeing everyone as neighbor and sibling, no matter where they come from, and the biblical foundation of hospitality, extending a welcome to guests and offering a home away from home. Particularly, we focused on the stories of immigrants and refugees about whom the author had written and with whom he had shared part of their journey, as well as the current injustices being foisted on immigrants and people of color in our country, and ways that we can engage and provide care. In our explorations, Jesus as immigrant and refugee, Jesus as compassionate caregiver, Jesus as one treated as a threat and targeted by empire were all present, reminding us of how we encounter Jesus and can be a presence of Christ every day. On Thursday, March 19th, the Reverend Dr. Chris Davies, Executive Minister for Programs and Initiatives for the Southern New England Conference, joined us. She is the author of the chapter Rural Organizing for Rural Congregations in the group-written book Building Up a New World, Congregational Organizing for Transformative Impact, edited by Ann Dunlap and Vahisha Hassan. Reverend Dr. Davies invited us into a different understanding of organizing than that which we often think, one that is organic, neighbor to neighbor, and focused on the needs of the community more than the specific issues of justice or injustice. Says Reverend Davies, one of the most critical things that we can do as Christians in 2026 is to return to the roots of who we are and whose we are, and put that into action through how we show up in our communities. Dr. Davies reminded us that context matters, and we are the experts of our context. This is the key in how we engage in organizing for the good of the people in need in our community, and how we approach one another. Jesus taught us boldly to community activism. Love your neighbor, clothe the naked, welcome the stranger, free the prisoner, share the wealth, set the table, feed the hungry. This is Jesus' ministry passed on to us, and it's about acknowledging compassion and showing up for each other. To experience this conversation more fully, I invite you to go to the Southeast Conference United Church of Christ YouTube page and click on Actively Preparing for Jesus, Rural Organizing for Rural Congregations. On Thursday, March 26th, we gathered for our third and final Lenten exploration of Actively Preparing for Jesus, again via Zoom. There we encountered the late Reverend Dr. Howard Thurman through his book, The Search for Common Ground, one of Thurman's later books, and self-described as his lifelong working paper. This presentation and conversation was led by the Reverend Thomas Mitchell, Associate Minister at Central Congregational United Church of Christ in Atlanta. Here, Dr. Thurman looked at the individual and the community and how they are not only connected, but necessary for one another to exist. Wrote the esteemed author in the preface of the book, "From my childhood, I have been on the scent of the tie that binds life at a level so deep that the final privacy of the individual would be reinforced rather than threatened. I've always wanted to be me without making it difficult for you to be you." What does it mean to be oneself and also part of something bigger than oneself? What does it mean to make certain that our needs are met without diminishing the needs of others or making sure that they are also met? These are life questions that Jesus guided us through in his teachings and in his life, death, and resurrection. I want to take a moment to extend a huge thank you to our three guest leaders in our exploration of how to actively prepare for Jesus. I also encourage you, if you haven't done so already, to take some time in the Easter season to delve into these books. Common themes of how to be neighbor, how to live in community, and how to be our faithful selves, God created and Jesus following, tie them together and inform us in our own encounters with Christ, one another, and injustice. In a few days, I'll have the joy of addressing you in the celebration of Easter. But first, we have to get there. And these next few days, well, I think they invite us into a time of the greatest active preparation to encounter and engage Jesus of all. We've experienced the triumphal and symbolic entry of Jesus into Jerusalem on Palm Sunday. In many ways, even after rehearsing this event, this entire Holy Week, time and time again, we still experience the event of Jesus riding into Jerusalem on a donkey colt in direct contrast to empire parading in at the opposite end of the city with show of force of multiple battalions of soldiers on horseback and foot, as naively as did our predecessors who were in Jerusalem waving palm branches and throwing their cloaks on the ground to create a royal path for the Messiah that day. We selectively ignore what is coming. Last Supper, the arrest, the display of an unfair trial, the beating and humiliation, the execution on a cross, the death, the quick burial before Sabbath begins, until we either step into what we hope are sanitized opportunities to move through the painful and deplorable atrocities that occurred in order for Jesus' resurrection and God's victory over death and evil to happen, which often sets it akin to a fairy tale experience. Or we simply skip them and jump to Easter morning as if it is a standalone event, missing how deep God is willing to go and to define love and justice, or how wide that love and justice can go if and when we are ready to allow all that Jesus is, all that is God's love, to not just sit in front of us, but to flow through us. As we come upon Maundy, Thursday, Good Friday, and Holy Saturday, before we get to Easter Sunday, I invite us together, as we did at the beginning of Lent, to actively prepare for Jesus so that we not only celebrate Christ's resurrection, but we experience it. How will we live out the unprecedented love God has willingly provided for us to ingest and share? How will we both define and love neighbor as Jesus insisted? How will we overcome what Walter Brueggemann described as ideological totalism that is trying to monopolize prophetic imagination and funnel us into a singularity of understanding and being that is intolerant of alternative thinking, intolerant of Jesus' call to living and God's all-inclusive love? In these days of chaos and despair, war and justice, may we actively prepare for Jesus, who defines our relationship to God as church. And may we actively prepare to follow a risen Christ. I close with this prayer, a contemporary paraphrasing of the Anima Christi as written by David L. Fleming, S.J., and as shared in the book Hearts on Fire, Praying with Jesuits. Jesus, may all that is you flow into me. May your body and blood be my food and drink. May your passion and death be my strength and life. Jesus, with you by my side, enough has been given. May the shelter I seek be the shadow of your cross. Let me not run from the love which you offer, but hold me safe from the forces of evil. On each of my dyings, shed your light and your love. Keep calling to me until that day comes when, with your saints, I may praise you forever. Amen. May these last few days of Lent fill you with hope and promise and an intense desire to actively prepare for Jesus.